Hello and welcome to this FPL Gameweek 3 team selection video with me, Holly Shand. Got some big decisions to make with a few problems in my squad, including Gabriel and Joao Pedro. Get this one to 1,000 likes and hit the subscribe button, heading for 24k by the Gameweek 3 deadline. Let's get into it. Starting off with how my Game Week 2 went, I finished on 48 points, a red arrow, first red arrow of the season and the first captain blank. FPL is truly back, but some people had some absolute disasters this week, so I felt pleased to get away with it. And Bomo on 16 points was the headline player. Estupinian also delivered 11 points, very pleased with that one. And I did have that return from Salah as well, who was my vice captain. Probably should have captained him. He did miss the penalty, score the rebound, so that does lead to some question marks on him going forward. But for me right now, in terms of cash in FPL, we seem to have so many cheap options that it's perfectly viable to fit Haaland and Salah in without having to make too many compromises elsewhere in our squad. So I think Salah is going to survive for at least another week because I have bigger problems elsewhere. And Marcus Rashford, despite blanking in the first two games, he's going nowhere either. Nottingham Forest at home is going to be his time to redeem himself. He managed a goal and an assist in this fixture last season, and obviously his home record at Old Trafford is sensational, so hopefully he can find his feet in Game Week 3. Going into Game Week 3 then, I have 2 free transfers, nothing in the bank. I'm going to need those free transfers as well because, as I mentioned at the top, I've got some issues to deal with. The first one being Gabriel, who's failed to start the first 2 matches for Arsenal. There's been some mumblings that maybe he will go to the Saudi League. However, we've seen in recent days Arsenal come out and say he is not for sale, but obviously there's been something going on in the background which has meant that he has seen reduced minutes to start the season with. However, Timber is injured, Tomiyasu is suspended. That means that Zinchenko should come back into the Arsenal back line, and he's going to be the fullback that inverts from the left back position, which means that Arsenal need to start with White as their traditional right back rather than Partey inverting. They'll need that left-footed centre-back of Gabriel in there. So I think Fulham at home, I'm probably being a little bit ambitious here, but I really hope that Gabriel starts in that fixture. And he's got a good record against them as well. I think he's got 3 goals in 4 matches against them. And obviously Fulham are struggling for goals with Mitrovic out the door as well. So Gabriel probably going to survive one more game week in my squad. The next problem in my squad is James Maddison. Now this is a frustrating one because he looked sensational in game week 1, picked up a knock in game week 2. Now Spurs press conference isn't going to be until Friday, so we're going to have to wait for exact information on his availability until then. But it's a minor MCL strain, no problem with his foot. It's a little bit of a knee injury. Recovery is meant to be quick for that one, and he could potentially make the squad for the weekend against Bournemouth, but it's expected that the club will be cautious. Now we have to bear in mind that Bournemouth away is a nice fixture for Spurs, and when you've got a player that, like Maddison, who is quite injury prone, they don't want him to rush him back in and then him get injured again quite quickly. You look at Spurs fixtures, and game week 4 they play Burnley away as well, so another nice fixture. After that, it's the international break. Now, if Spurs do manage Maddison conservatively and he doesn't make the squad in game week 3 and 4, then they can keep him instead of him going out on England duty, which will probably be in the club's best interest. Manage this injury, don't let him get flogged for England, and then he comes back in for game week 5. Sheffield United at home, followed by Arsenal away, Liverpool at home. 2 really big fixtures for Spurs coming up. So I don't think Maddison will start in game week 3. I doubt he'll even be in the squad. And given the issues I've got elsewhere and how threadbare my bench is, I've got Baldock and Kabore with Mubama, who isn't getting any minutes right now, I can't really afford to hold Maddison. So I think he's probably going to be a transfer out this week. I did look at doing an early move for Foden on Tuesday before Foden's price rise, but I decided against it. I wanted to wait for more information, so I'm probably going to have to go down to the midfielders that started the season in that 6.5 million bracket. The third problem in my squad is Joao Pedro. Now, it all looked so promising when he started in game week 1 and converted a penalty as well, but he found himself on the bench in game week 2, and I think De Zerbi had him on the naughty step. Now, De Zerbi made some comments on Joao Pedro in his press conference on Friday. This got embargoed, so we didn't actually find out about it until Saturday, in which case it was too late. De Zerbi said he is a great player, already a great player, but I would like him to improve in mentality. When he loses the ball, he has to work harder, but he is not a complete player yet. But I would like him to progress and reach his potential like I do with Evan Ferguson. So I think De Zerbi was maybe a little bit frustrated with some of Joao Pedro's play in the opening game week, and this is why he was on the naughty step in game week 2. However, we've since had news from Brighton that the replacement for Joao Pedro in that game with Enciso, he's now suffered a knee injury. The press conference news has suffered trauma to his left knee in one of the club's training sessions. He's been assisted and evaluated by the Brighton medical team. Now, this is quite big news, and the way this sounds, it could be quite a significant injury for Enciso, which may see him out for some time. So if that is the case, that's good news for Joao Pedro, who could come back in for Brighton as early this weekend, playing in that number 10 role. So again, I think I can get away with giving Joao Pedro one more week. The difficulty in his price tag at 5.5 million, there's not really anywhere that you can go in terms of shopping for a replacement without using 2 free transfers and releasing funds elsewhere. Now, obviously, if I sell Maddison, I could potentially do that if I go down to one of those midfielders around the 6.5 million mark. But looking at the forwards around this price point, Nketiah has already gone up to 5.6, but he could lose his place at any point. Edouard is in there at 5.5 for Palace. We've got Morris 5.5 at Luton, but with so many other forwards providing the value right now in that 6 to 7 million bracket, it's difficult to go sideways from Joao Pedro. Looking at the potential transfers in then, and with Gabriel now suffering a price drop, I'm kind of looking at replacements around the 4.5 million mark. The one that stands out to me the most is Rico Henry. I spoke about him on the deal sheet video on Monday, so do check that one out. But I'm really wanting to invest in defenders that have attacking threat as well as being good for clean sheets. And Brentford have only conceded one big chance on their goal so far. However, I am leaning to give Gabriel one more week. However, if I was to sell Maddison, this could release some funds. And in terms of Maddison replacements, it's the Brighton midfielders that I'm really looking to now, March and Matoma. Now, Matoma is the one that's bossing the stats at the moment, which is really encouraging after his underperformance towards the tail end of last season. March is the one winning the points race though, and I have to bear in mind that if I'm buying a Brighton player long term, I'm going to have to hold them through between tricky European fixtures which are coming after game week 5. And when you bear that in mind, I just feel like March is the one who's fixture proof and also the one that's more nailed on for minutes across all competitions, whereas I feel Matoma and his explosivity, he'll maybe be managed a little bit more. Some interesting comments on March midweek that the manager has set him a target of 15 goals for the season. Obviously got a really spectacular goal in game week 2, so if that can continue, then I think he could be on for a really big season, and I just feel like he's going to be more reliable in the long term for consistent FPL points. Now, if I did sell March, it would be easier to move Joao Pedro on, and I could be able to afford Wissa, who I also discussed in my deal sheet video on Monday. He's really flying in terms of being top for shots, which is really, really encouraging at this stage of the season. He's playing every game, he's advanced, Brentford are scoring goals for fun. The only downside is that he rarely completes 90 minutes, so that's something to keep an eye on. So if I got wind that maybe Joao Pedro was going to be benched again in game week 3, I could make the additional move to Wissa. But right now, it's the one in the middle that I'm probably most likely to do, which is Maddison out and March in. This will also give me 2 free transfers going into game week 4. So if I'm ready to part with Rashford or Salah by that point, then I could absolutely have that flexibility to make even more moves. Game week 3, team selection then, and after rotating my goalkeepers in game week 2 to start Turner at home to Sheffield United, where he failed to keep a clean sheet. Johnston is back in for the trip to Brentford away. It's not going to be great playing him up against Mbomo, but if Brentford do win a penalty, provided it's on target, I'm guaranteed points either way. So let's see what happens there. The fixtures for the defence look spectacular. I've got Estepinian against West Ham at home, Gabriel plays Fulham at home, and Chilwell plays Luton at home. Really good clean sheet potential in all of those fixtures, and they've all got attacking threat. I just need Gabriel to start, but as I said in the transfer section, I suspect he will do, with a little bit of a tweak to that Arsenal back line again this week, and hopefully that Saudi situation settling down. Into the midfield then, and 4 of the 5 players here have a home game. Saka against Fulham at home. Surely there's attacking returns for him in that game. Rashford needs to come good against Forest at home, but hopefully his home form comes to the fore again at Old Trafford this season. And Bomo's absolutely flying. Crystal Palace at home, a great fixture for him again. And then we've got Solly March coming in for West Ham at home. I'm really excited to see what he can do in my team this season. It feels good to finally have a slice of that Brighton midfield and a little bit of a differential. March a lot less owned than Matoma. I need that one to pay off. Salah travels to Newcastle away. Now, a tough fixture on paper, but we need to bear in mind that Liverpool beat Newcastle home and away last season, with Salah racking up 3 assists across the 2 fixtures. We have seen more of an assist role from him this season, but, you know, the other midfielders maybe regress in terms of their attacking output, whereas Salah you can kind of bank on to keep those attacking returns coming throughout the season. Hopefully he stays on penalties, and then I'm crossing my fingers in the front line that Joao Pedro gets the nod against West Ham at home, or at least comes off the bench and delivers me some points. He survives for 1 more week. I do have some funds in the bank though, having made the downgrade from Maddison to Solly March, with Haaland obviously up front. Sheffield United away, a fantastic fixture. Now when it comes to captaincy as well, it has to be Haaland. He's got a fantastic record in the Premier League against promoted teams. That continued in game week 1 of this season. Burnley away, got a brace in that fixture. Sheffield United still got a little bit of a threadbare squad, so I think it's an easy decision to give Haaland the captaincy once again. Now, I did run the team through the team rating and game week rating tool on Fantasy Football Hub. You can do this as well using the link in the description to this video. I'll also get you recommended transfers as well, which is a nice touch. The team is only rated 90% for game week 3. We know the problems in the squad, but we know that they've all got potential to come but good. Predicted points 61.8 after a 48 last week. I'm hoping that we get a better score this weekend. If you've got any dilemmas of your own still, get in the comments. I answer all questions. Remember, we're going for 1,000 likes on this one. Hit the subscribe button as well. Would love to hit 24k before the deadline, and use that notify button as well, because I've got 2 live streams coming up tomorrow. The links for these are in the description to the video as well, and pinned on the channel page. We've got the press conference stream with exact news on Maddison coming on Friday, 1 o'clock UK time, and then on Friday at 5:30 p.m, 1 hour before the deadline, we've got the deadline stream where I'll try and answer as many of your questions as possible. I'll also be locking in my transfers by that point as well. Good luck for FPL Game Week 3.